our guest here. He's my favorite follow on Twitter, and I'm not just saying that because he agrees to come on and talk to us. It's the Cubs director of morale, Dom. You can find him on Twitter, Dom_Frederick. Fred, welcome to the show. How you doing, bud?
Thanks for having me again. It is cold outside, but Cubs baseball is around the corner. It's coming. We're in February already, so it's great to talk to you, Joe. And again, baseball's here. It's on the way.
Baseball is here. So, all right. So let's see. You've shouldered a lot of morale responsibility for the city of Chicago the last couple of weeks. We'll get to that in a second. But we'll get to your number one job. That would be Cubs right now. Cubs make a move earlier this week, or I think it was the end of last week, signing Jock Peterson to the roster. I've been told I'm not supposed to equate Jock Peterson and Kyle Schwarber, but it's hard to do. How do you feel about that, and where does Peterson fit in with the Cubs organization right now?
Listen, I think it's a good move. Obviously, I know fans are going to have the sentimental feeling considering Kyle was essentially cut for nothing. But when you look at the players, obviously, and again, I say this as the biggest fan of Kyle, Jock's going to strike out a little less. He's going to be a slightly better defender in left field. He has the opportunity to be more productive at the plate. And overall, I think when we're looking at Kyle compared to Jock, and I love Kyle, but I think Jock is a little bit more consistent overall. So I think there's an upgrade there. Factor on that it is a cheaper deal, and it's potentially in a more team-friendly fashion moving on for year number 2 with the option. And then the opportunity to also go out and sign Trevor Williams, who, again, I know isn't a world beater, but if you're going to be an organization that wants to come out on top in the coming years, this year as well, you're going to need to find diamonds in the rough, just like Jake Arrieta back in 2014-15. So I like the move. I love Kyle. I hate that he's gone. I hate that he was not tenured. But if you have to make a decision and fill an actual roster spot with a big league player, doing it with Jock Peterson is great, considering we weren't even sure if they were going to spend it in the first place.
What do you know about Jock Peterson? One thing I love about you, Fred, is you kind of dive into the personalities of the players and kind of let us know who shines and who maybe doesn't. What do you know about the personality of Jock? Is he going to fit in with kind of the vibe we like to have at Wrigley?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been trying to figure that out myself, asking a few guys. I think he could be a morale guy. Again, he's got to ingratiate himself with the Morale family and the Cubs fan base, but I'm excited. Whether he was trolling Addison Russell when he kept on throwing the bat a couple years ago into behind the third base dugout, or if he's just celebrating home runs, which I have no problem with, which I think Trevor Williams is going to have to explain himself. Not to go off topic, Joe, but Trevor Williams is going to have to explain himself because he's been on record saying that he loves bat flips, and Jock Peterson does that all the time. But then he also says that he's going to go out of his way to hit guys if they do that. So kind of explain himself there. I'm not meaning to go on a tangent right now, but I thought it was a little odd. Anyways, yes, I'm excited for Jock to be here. I think he can be a great personality for the fan base, for the clubhouse, but I am trying to get my own intel moving forward and see if he is truly a morale guy moving forward into 2021.
You are connected. I'm sure you'll find that out soon. You mentioned his name a little bit earlier, but Jake Arrieta being talked about, being whispered on the old internets about maybe getting a second run in a Cubs uniform. One, obviously you'd be excited for that. Two, do you think if he comes to the Cubs, is this a tryout? Either he'll be here for a month or two and it's not working, or is he just going to be maybe a possible trade bait? Maybe flip him for something later. What do you think about Arrieta coming to the Cubs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would probably say no as trade bait. Now, if he's coming out as a world beater like he was before, I doubt that happens. Yes, then potentially there's a situation there for a trade. I think overall, really to solidify the 4 or 5 spot in this rotation, I'm a lot more optimistic about Adbert as other people are. Maybe it's just because he absolutely shoved in 2020 as this new slider that I don't think anyone's going to be able to hit. But I think a lot of people are just acting as if he's slotted as the 5th starter. I think he's going to pitch better than that. Maybe I'm just too optimistic. But overall, when you're looking at Jake, I think there's a great chance for him, if he does come back, to be a suitable guy, a guy who can lead the young arms like Alec Mills, like Adbert, potentially Braylon if he comes up this year. There's been talks about that. I don't know if it's necessarily going to happen at the start of the year, But again, if the price is right and Jake wants to be here, I don't see why you wouldn't bring him back. It has been talked about that he's looking at north of 8, 9, 10 million, which in my opinion is a little steep when you look at the numbers. But if you can make it work, I'd love to have him, even though there are other cheaper options on the market. But again, going back to what I originally said, if you want to be a team that competes, if you want to be a team that every single year has an opportunity to win a division, go to the playoffs, potentially win a World Series, you have to find guys off the so-called scrap heap, so-called guys who aren't necessarily coveted at the moment because of poor performance in the past. You got to find these guys and you got to fix them in one form or another to make them productive players again, because it's so critical at every single edge that you can find here in the big leagues is going to be prosperous moving on. So hopefully Jake's that guy. If he's not, I think there's other options out there, like a Trevor Williams or others that we'll probably see sign in the coming days or weeks.
You said, if you want to compete, and you laid out a lot of things. I know you want to compete, and I think we both think everybody on the team wants to compete. I even think Jed wants to compete. Do you think the Ricketts and the organization, above, wants to compete next year?
It's a great question. Here's the thing that I've always thought about the Ricketts. I am more, how would I say it, forgiving of the ownership than other fans. I'm not here to make excuses for them all the time, but I do think they do a hard job. They have spent a lot of money, so on and so forth. But they haven't spent money in the biggest offseason, specifically the last two before this one, when you're talking about the end of the era, the end of the core four, whatever you want to call it. They didn't spend. But what I believe is that they're not stupid. They know that they need fans in the stands. They know that they need morale, for lack of a better term, morale to be incredibly high in the ballpark. And we saw the attendance drop off early in the early 2010s when they weren't doing well. And obviously, if they're going to make the argument that, well, we need fans in the stands, it's so important to our bottom line, this is where we generate so much revenue, well, then you got to have a good team on the field. And I'm at least happy we made steps in the right direction last week, signing guys to one-year deals, or at least reallocating the funds that we saved from bad news, from Schwarber, from not bringing on Lester for his last year. So, again, I don't think they're dumb. Clearly, I hope they want to win. I think they want to win, but they have to show a little bit more urgency in doing so. For example, let's get an extension on one of these guys. You got to show what you want to do moving forward one way or another. We're going into the three guys' last year as a Cub, less than 12 months away where they are a free agent. We got to sign one of them to show the fan base that we're going to take steps in the correct direction moving forward. So I really hope that's really what I'm focused on right now, is trying to get an extension on one of these guys' table and for them to sign it so we know who we're going to have next year. But I'm hoping that that's in the works. I haven't been told that it is necessarily in the works with some guys. I'm hoping that changed. I'm hoping they've heard a different tune from the fan base and they're understanding a little bit more. Hopefully, with the vaccine coming along, we have a better outlook if fans can actually be in the stands in 2021. So maybe that's opening the pocketbooks up a little bit, but we'll see. I trust them to an extent. I still believe in them, but I'm not going to be one that's just going to make excuses for them all the time. And hopefully they prove us wrong or prove us right in thinking that they really want to win and want to be competitive in 2021 and beyond.
One of the players you're talking about that might need an extension this year, the catcher Wilson Contreras. The buzz is that the Cubs are pretty stocked, in the minor leagues, and some kids coming up at the catcher position. Who are we talking about, and would that be a suitable replacement for your backstop?
Oh, it's a great question. I mean, I don't think Amaya is necessarily close to being in the big leagues in 2021, but I don't see why not in 2022. Again, the catching position is so unique in the sense that now really all you need is a guy who can slug. Obviously, Wilson can do that, but a guy who can really frame and control a pitching staff. So if you have a year where you play a guy like David Ross, not saying he's going to come back and catch, but one of those types of players, and find a guy who can swing it a little bit and platoon those players, then that's a good option. The only thing that I've always been worried about with Wilson is, A, he is a catcher. So if he's one of your best players, he intrinsically can't play every day because of his position. And then, two, he has serious injury history, whether it be the hamstrings, other things with the legs. I mean, that's an issue. He's going to be 29 this year. I love the guy. He's my backstop. I've been saying it forever. But I don't know if he's necessarily the guy that I'm looking at for an extension moving forward. I still think he's on the trade block. I still think the Cubs are going to make another move. Not to put a damper on this discussion right now, Joe, but I do think they're going to make another move, whether it be Bryant, whether it be Contreras. We'll see. But when I'm talking extensions, I'm talking Rizzo has to happen. Baez, are you gonna commit to this guy long term or not? Ian Happ, obviously my guy. And then again, I know I just mentioned him in a potential trade situation. I don't see why you aren't still trying to work with Chris Bryant. We're in a suppressed market. He's had some down years. His trade value is low. Why not commit to the guy that you know is going to put the ball in play, that you know is going to get on base, that you know can be an MVP player in the future if he's right and healthy? I think he's the best fit for an extension. I'll stand by that. Hopefully Jed's listening. Hopefully that happens along with other extensions for our core players. But we'll see. I'm looking forward. I trust Jed. But again, as I said, we have to have some more urgency moving forward into this offseason because we have a bunch of lame ducks on this roster right now, and that's not a good feeling as a fan.
I will do my best to get this in the hands of Jed later today to make sure he can listen. Before I let you go, we're going to shift sport gears a little bit here. When news first broke 3-4 weeks ago about Deshaun Watson wanting to leave the Houston Texans, you were immediately on it. You were immediately on it, doing some online recruiting. I think initially you were met with derision almost. There's no way he was going to come here. There's no way that the Bears would pull a trigger like that. The winds have shifted in the last week or so. Have you noticed that too? Just the attitude, like this seems like it might actually happen, maybe even should happen. And what was the genesis for the collective shift in attitude?
Well, Joe, all I can say is this. Again, I don't know where the shift in attitude is coming from. All I know is that I've been on the right side of history from the beginning of him being on the trade block. Because if you can get a franchise quarterback, I'm not saying I know everything about football, but I know enough. If you have a good quarterback who can, again, raise the level of the players around your quarterback, then you have a chance to be competitive every single year. And I think it's absolutely insane that there aren't more people recruiting Deshaun Watson to come to the Bears. First-round picks, who cares? You know what? Guys blow these picks all the time. GMs, we've seen it in Chicago for years. Give them all the picks. If you want to give them Roquan, fine. If you want to give them Montgomery, fine. If you want to give them Jalen Johnson, fine. You need a franchise quarterback. I'm going to be on the right side of history. And if he does sign, they'll be talking about Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, and the director of morale for the Chicago Cubs who recruited Deshaun Watson to the Chicago Bears. That's all I'm saying. I'm not looking for thank yous. Again, not all heroes wear capes. I'm just out here trying to do what I can for the city, the state of Illinois, and the Chicago fan base. So whatever has to be done, I'm going to be the guy that's going to shoulder that burden on a daily basis. I have to tweet him actually today because I haven't done it in a couple of days. I want to make sure we're still here. The Stafford news was a little tricky because the Bears were involved, so I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
Right. I'm
obviously on the way far out on the outside in terms of information with the Bears. So I'm going with the flow, but we're going to get Deshaun back in the fold. And again, I'm going to recruit this guy until he goes one way or another, whatever his decision is for 2021, because the Bears need a quarterback. If we had one, we wouldn't be in the situation that we've been in as a fan base for 20, 30, basically the entire history
our
of
lifetime.
The Chicago Bears franchise.
Yeah, I know you said you didn't ask for thanks, but on behalf of all Chicago fans, we appreciate the effort and keep up the good work. All right.
Thank you, Joe.
Not a problem. That is Fred, the director of morale. Follow him on Twitter, Dom_Frederick. You come back on the show later when some more news breaks.
Absolutely. Just let me know and we'll get it going. Thanks again for having me. This is a lot of fun, and I always appreciate the opportunity.